There's a moment that happens long before you consciously decide you're done with a conversation. It's subtle, almost invisible. You're standing there, maybe in an elevator, maybe at a party, and someone starts talking about the weather, traffic, or something they don't really care about either. On the surface, you look fine, calm, polite, present, but inside, something quietly pulls the plug. Your jaw tightens without you noticing. Your eyes lose focus for half a second. Your thoughts, once sharp, layered, alive, suddenly feel like they're dragging through mud. It's not boredom, and it's not impatience. It's fatigue, not emotional fatigue, nervous system fatigue. Your body senses a demand coming. One it's learned offers no real return. So it does what it was designed to do. It conserves energy. It lowers output. It starts a soft, internal shutdown. This is why you sometimes feel strangely detached during small talk, as if you're watching yourself from a distance. A mild dissociation, a protective narrowing of awareness. And here's the important part. This reaction isn't a choice. You didn't decide to disengage. It happened before your thoughts had a say. To the outside world, it may look like disinterest or arrogance, but internally, what's happening is far more precise. Your system isn't rejecting people. It's rejecting overload without meaning. Your body shuts down, not because you don't care, but because it knows exactly how expensive this kind of interaction is for you. In this video, we're going deeper than personality labels or social advice. We're uncovering the hidden psychology and biology behind why some minds shut down in shallow conversations, and why this trait isn't a weakness, but a misunderstood form of intelligence that changes how you connect with the world. Let's begin. When this happens, the labels usually come fast. You're quiet. You're hard to read. Maybe even stuck up or antisocial. And after hearing that enough times, it's easy to turn those judgments inward and assume something is wrong with you. But there isn't. What you're experiencing is not a lack of social skill. It's a mismatch of processing styles. Some people process the world outward in. They think by talking. They regulate their nervous system through interaction. For them, small talk is a warm-up. It helps them arrive. You process the world inward out. You arrive first, internally. Your clarity comes from reflection, pattern recognition, and meaning. Conversation isn't how you warm up. It's how you express what's already formed. So when you're dropped into surface-level chatter, it's not that you can't engage. It's that your mind doesn't know where to land. There's nothing to build on, nothing to synchronize with. This is also why hating small talk is not the same as social anxiety. You're not afraid of people. You're not avoiding connection. You're avoiding empty signals. Silence doesn't make you uncomfortable. Shallowness does. And that distinction matters because it changes the story from I'm broken to I'm wired differently. To understand why small talk exhausts you so quickly, you have to look at how your mind allocates energy. Your brain is not stimulation seeking, it's pattern seeking. It is constantly scanning for meaning, coherence, and signal. When it engages with something, it wants depth connections it can build on, ideas it can layer, emotional truth it can respond to. This is how it stays efficient. Small talk disrupts that efficiency. Every time you're pulled into a surface-level exchange, your brain has to perform a costly internal switch. It must pause whatever deep process it was running, suppress your authentic response, and load a social script you already know by heart. None of this is difficult, but it is expensive. Psychologists refer to this as a cognitive switching cost. For you, that cost is unusually high. Think about what actually happens in a simple exchange like, "How are you?" No new information is gained, no emotional synchronization occurs, no insight is exchanged. Yet your brain still has to monitor tone, manage facial expression, time your response, and signal politeness, all while knowing the interaction will go nowhere. That's why it feels like unpaid labor. You're working mentally and neurologically without receiving anything that restores what you spent. After enough of these interactions, your mind doesn't just feel tired, it feels inefficient, like a high-performance system forced to idle in the wrong gear. This also explains why the exhaustion lingers. After small talk, it can take you far longer to return to focus or creativity. The mental momentum is gone. The thread is broken. You're not socially lazy. You're energy conscious. Your brain is designed to invest where there is meaning, return, and depth. When those are missing, it registers the interaction not as connection, but as loss. And over time, it learns to protect itself from repeating that loss too often. What you're feeling isn't just psychological, it's chemical. We're often told that dopamine is the brain's pleasure chemical, but that's an oversimplification. Dopamine is really about reward, prediction, and motivation. It's what lights up when something feels stimulating, novel, or socially rewarding. For many people, especially extroverts, small talk delivers quick dopamine hits. A smile from a stranger, a shared joke, a brief sense of belonging. Their brains are wired to register these micro-interactions as rewards. It feels energizing, even when the conversation itself is shallow. Your brain works differently. Instead of relying primarily on dopamine, your nervous system leans more heavily on a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is associated with deep focus, reflection, learning, and internal clarity. It activates when you're immersed reading, thinking, creating, or engaging in meaningful conversation. Here's the problem. Small talk sits in an in-between space that doesn't serve either system. It's too shallow and chaotic to activate acetylcholine, which needs calm and depth. But it's also too predictable and meaningless to trigger a dopamine reward for you, because your brain doesn't perceive it as valuable. That leaves you in what could be called a neurochemical dead zone. You're expending energy monitoring social cues, maintaining politeness, regulating your expression, but you're receiving no chemical reinforcement in return, no reward, no focus, no sense of completion. This is why small talk doesn't just feel boring, it feels draining. Over time, repeated exposure to this dead zone can lead to something deeper, chronic social fatigue. You may start associating casual interactions with depletion rather than connection. Your system learns, unconsciously, that these environments cost more than they give. This also explains why meaningful conversation feels so different. When depth appears, when ideas, emotions, or real curiosity enter the space, your chemistry shifts. Acetylcholine activates. Time passes differently. Energy returns. You don't need more stimulation. You need the right kind of stimulation. And when your brain doesn't get it, it doesn't rebel loudly. It simply powers down. This way of responding to the world usually doesn't appear out of nowhere. For many people who hate small talk, the pattern begins early, long before they could name it or understand it. Often, they grew up in environments where being emotionally attuned mattered more than being expressive. Maybe the room was unpredictable, maybe moods shifted without warning, or maybe no one asked what they were really thinking, only whether they were behaving correctly. So they learned to watch. They learned to read subtle cues, to sense tension before it was spoken, to track meaning beneath words. Depth wasn't a luxury, it was a survival skill. Understanding what was really going on mattered more than filling silence. In some cases, there was emotional neglect, not always loud or dramatic, but quiet. Feelings were minimized. Curiosity went unanswered. Conversations stayed practical, surface level, or transactional. Over time, the child learned something important. If connection is going to happen, it has to happen internally first. That's where meaning becomes anchored. As adults, these individuals often crave conversations that feel real, because for a long time, reality lived mostly inside them. Small talk doesn't feel neutral. It feels like a return to being unseen, like performing again without being met. This isn't about trauma in the clinical sense. It's about adaptation. Your nervous system learned to prioritize depth, because depth was where safety, clarity, or truth lived. Shallow exchanges didn't offer guidance, protection, or connection, so your system stopped investing in them. What looks like disinterest now is often the residue of early attentiveness. You're not rejecting the world. You're listening for something that once mattered enough to shape how you survive and how you connect. One of the biggest misunderstandings about people who hate small talk is the belief that they want to be alone. Most of the time, the opposite is true. You don't dislike people. You dislike entry points that lead nowhere. There's a quiet ache that comes with this. Because on the outside, it may look like you're selective, distant, or self-contained. But internally, there is often a deep hunger for connection, just not the kind that asks you to shrink your inner world to fit a shallow exchange. This is the paradox. You can sit alone for hours and feel fine, but sit through 10 minutes of empty conversation and you feel depleted. Not because talking is hard, but because nothing meaningful is happening. When real conversation appears, everything changes. Time loosens. Your energy comes back online. You stop monitoring yourself. You're no longer managing expressions or searching for the right response. You're synchronizing. This is what psychologists sometimes refer to as authentic synchronization, a state where attention, emotion, and meaning align between two people. In that space, you don't feel tired, you feel alive. But the cost to reach that space is often high. For many people, the doorway to depth is paved with sports talk, weather updates, and polite rituals. For you, that doorway feels like standing ankle deep in water that never gets deeper. So you hesitate, you wait, and often you walk away. Not because you fear intimacy, but because you're unwilling to pay for it with disconnection. Over time, this creates a specific kind of loneliness. Not the loneliness of being unseen, but the loneliness of knowing you could be seen if only the conditions were right. You don't want more conversations. You want fewer but real ones. And until they appear, solitude can feel safer than pretending you're already connected. If you live in the United States, this internal experience is quietly made harder by culture. American culture is built around an unspoken rule. Visibility equals virtue. Speaking up means you're engaged. Being outgoing means you're friendly. Filling silence means you're doing your part. In this framework, silence isn't neutral. It's suspicious. From an early age, people are praised for being talkative, energetic, and socially fluent. Class participation is graded. Networking is celebrated. Confidence is often measured by how easily someone can speak, especially about nothing in particular. So when you don't perform that ritual, it doesn't just register as a personality difference. It feels like a violation. Anthropologists have pointed out how unusual this is. In countries like Finland, Japan, or parts of Eastern Europe, silence is not a gap to be filled. It's a sign of respect. Presence matters more than performance. Speaking only when there is something to say is considered thoughtful, not awkward. But in the American context, quiet often gets misread as disengagement, arrogance, or lack of warmth. This creates a subtle layer of shame. You're not just tired from the interaction, you're now monitoring how you're being perceived. Are you being friendly enough? Are you coming off cold? Should you say something, anything, just to reassure the room? That added self-surveillance is exhausting. Over time, many people who hate small talk begin to associate social spaces not just with boredom, but with moral pressure. The pressure to prove you're approachable, normal, acceptable. And slowly, silence, once a place of grounding, starts to feel like something you have to defend. Not because it's wrong, but because the culture forgot how to sit with it. Up to this point, it might sound like hating small talk is purely a strength, and in many ways, it is. But there's a cost that rarely gets acknowledged, especially in conversations that romanticize depth. When you consistently avoid small talk, you don't just avoid shallow conversations. You sometimes avoid access. Opportunities, relationships, and moments of connection often begin in places that feel trivial. A casual comment, an awkward opening, a few minutes of shared nothing before something real emerges. For many people, small talk isn't the destination, it's the doorway. When that doorway feels intolerable, it's easy to start opting out entirely. Over time, this can lead to a kind of self-isolation that doesn't feel lonely at first. You tell yourself you're just selective, that you're protecting your energy, and often that's true. But there's a quieter risk. You may begin to idealize deep people and dismiss everyone else too quickly. You may miss chances to discover depth that takes time to surface. And you may unintentionally reinforce the belief that connection must arrive fully formed or not at all. Depth without access becomes a closed system. This doesn't mean you need to force yourself to enjoy small talk or betray your nature. It means recognizing that avoidance can harden into a pattern, and patterns shape outcomes. Small talk is not meaningful in itself, but it can be transitional. The challenge isn't learning to tolerate emptiness. It's learning how to pass through it without abandoning yourself on the way to something real. The solution isn't to endure small talk or to escape it as fast as possible. It's to redirect it. Most people approach shallow conversation defensively. They answer on autopilot, wait for it to end, or mentally check out. That keeps you trapped in the very space that drains you. The bridge method works differently. Instead of answering the question that's asked, you answer the question beneath it, the one that actually has potential. When someone asks, "How was your weekend?" they're rarely asking for a report. They're reaching out, testing for connection, looking for a thread. So you offer one. You acknowledge the surface, but you don't stay there. It was quiet, actually. I ended up reading a lot about how people change after burnout. Have you ever gone through a period like that? Or when someone says, "Crazy weather, huh?" you might respond, "Yeah, it makes me miss being somewhere completely different." Travel is one of the few things that resets my perspective. What's the last place that really stayed with you? Notice what you're doing. You're not being intense. You're not oversharing. You're offering a direction. Most people are waiting for this. They don't love small talk either, they just don't know how to exit it. When you introduce meaning gently, many will follow. And when they don't, that's information too. The bridge method also includes knowing when not to push. If someone keeps returning to safe scripts, you don't need to carry the conversation alone. You can let it rest without judgment. This isn't about turning every interaction into a deep exchange. It's about giving your nervous system a chance to engage without pretending, without forcing, and without abandoning yourself just to seem polite. You're not responsible for entertaining others. If there's one truth to carry with you, let it be this. You were never meant to be a performer in conversations. You're a curator. You sense when an exchange has substance and when it's just noise. You feel the difference between speaking to be heard and speaking to be real. And you naturally move toward meaning, not because you think you're better than others, but because your nervous system recognizes depth as safety. That doesn't make you difficult. It makes you discerning. You're not here to fill silence, manage other people's comfort, or keep conversations alive that were never meant to grow. Your role is quieter and more precise. You bring clarity, presence, and intention into spaces that often rush past all three. And when connection happens for you, it's not casual. It's deliberate. It's grounding. It lasts. In the next video, we're exploring the opposite side of this dynamic, the psychology of people who like to put others down, why some people feel the need to diminish others, where that impulse really comes from, and what it reveals about their inner world. If you've ever felt subtly belittled in conversations, that one will resonate deeply. If this video helped you feel understood or put words to something you've lived but never explained, I'd love to hear your story. Leave a comment below. And if you want more conversations like this, subscribe to the channel. We go deep here.